What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so this dialogue involving Kobe Bryant and him being in the GOAT conversation, or him not really belonging in the GOAT conversation, this is still continuing. So, this thing started initially as a conversation about ring culture, right? That was originated from something that LeBron James said on the Mind the Game podcast, right? That ring culture has been damaging to NBA dialogue. And that championships are becoming too much of a focal point. And people like myself find it very convenient that LeBron James takes that position, considering that his 4 NBA championships, though a lot, fall behind all-time greats like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, and Kobe being Bryant, right? And he's tied with Stephen Curry. So it's interesting that he takes that position, because I'm pretty sure if he had won a couple of more rings, he would all of a sudden magically have an opposing opinion as far as seeing the harm of ring culture. He'll be like, championships are everything. And, it's funny because with guys like Michael Jordan, with guys like Kobe Bryant, that's all they played for. That's all they played for. So most of us see a lot of the things that LeBron James now laments are strategically put out there to undermine what guys like Kobe and Michael Jordan are all about, right? So then it became about, well, remember back in 02, 03, 04, remember in that time period, we were having conversations. This is people involved in sports. Like Gilbert Arenas said this, right? I remember we had conversations in the locker room about Tracy McGrady is better than Kobe, right? And, a person like myself pushed back on that, because, especially with Gilbert Arenas, because he's, is trying to say that at that time, not only was Kobe being compared to Tracy McGrady, Kobe was seen as the inferior sidekick of the Kobe-Shaq duo, which I would say to me, the last year where that was truly the case was 2000. But after that, Kobe took a huge leap in his level of play. He went from averaging 21 points a night to 28.5 points per game, if my memory serves me correctly, 28.5, and that's playing with Shaq. So, it wasn't just the scoring. It was the way he was dominating, playing with Shaq. But, that's a conversation that could be going to, I could go into depth about a lot of, that another time. Marcellus Wiley recently weighed in on this situation, and he is pushing back against Kobe fans. He maintains that it's Kobe fans that pushed Kobe into the GOAT conversation after his death, and that Kobe was not in the GOAT conversation before that, right? And this is what he had to say.
The problem is, I think Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson is saying is, whenever somebody comes and defends ring culture, defends LeBron, whatever it is, it feels like a seesaw. It feels like you hating on Kobe. Because I think people inserted Kobe into the GOAT conversation after he passed. And now you're really just seeing people try to reset that. And that's going to come with criticism, right? If Kobe wasn't in the GOAT conversation for a lot of people when he was alive, and then all of a sudden he passed, and you're like, you know what? We need to look at that. Kobe. Why not Kobe? Well, we all said when he was alive because he was that close to Jordan, but he wasn't Jordan. And if somebody play your position that's better than you, how you in the GOAT conversation? Like, that's what the rhetoric was. That's what the convo was. Now, it's shifted. Once he passed, hey, let's show him some love. Kobe in the GOAT conversation. Okay, that's fine. But not everybody made that shift. And I think Gilbert Arenas, and I don't even know if they talking about Gilbert, but they got to be talking about Gilbert or T-Mac. They like, look, in real time, we talking real analysis, real convo. And I was there, and y'all know it. In real time, 02, 01, 04, that world, Kobe wasn't in no GOAT conversation. And more importantly, you couldn't even go to the barbershop and win Kobe better than T-Mac. Remember that? That's just the real. That's not hate. And anybody who calls that hate is doing what Kendrick Perkins did, getting sensitive, riding in your car, and getting mad at nothing. Like, that's how it got to be. That's just real analysis. I'm sorry. We can't make up reality. And I don't care how much you love somebody, like somebody, root for somebody, and I know Matt Barnes got nothing but love for him, so I respect it. But at the same time, I haven't heard anybody really slandering Kobe's name, but beat it up in the comments. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't hear a take. But if it's about T-Mac, I ain't see him slander Kobe. If it's about Gilbert, I haven't heard him slandering Kobe, but beat it up in the comments. Let me know what y'all think.
You know, I've been on social media for a very, very long time. A long time. Way before YouTube. Back when they had these little threads, these little groups, these little basketball groups, right? I would say starting back in late 04. I think it's the first time I was in any basketball group. And I'm going to tell you this about the comparison with Tracy McGrady and Kobe Bryant, right? I've never said that wasn't the case. There was a comparison between Kobe and Tracy McGrady. I would say 02, 03, 04. That's true. There's truth to that, right? There was a debate about who was better, right? But this is the problem I have with that, because when people are bringing that up, they're not just trying to say, hey, at one point in time, Tracy McGrady was seen as being on this level to the point where he was being compared with Kobe. That's not the motivation here. That the motivation generally is to lower Kobe to the point where this three-time NBA champion is being compared to a scoring champion in Orlando where his team is only winning 20-something, 30-something games, right? So you're trying to lessen him. But if you take this snapshot in history, approach here, then conversely, there was a time, I would say in 86, 87, well, there were some people that was going to tell you, well, Dominique Wilkins might end up being better than Michael Jordan. I know that sounds outlandish to say now, but there was a little snapshot in time where that was a real conversation. Now, I would say by 88, 89, that kind of was falling apart, but there was that period of time where there was a little bit of a conversation. I said before, in 84, 85, it was a real conversation as to whether Bernard King was better than Larry Bird. And at that point, Larry Bird was a two-time NBA champion. Bernard King hadn't even sniffed an NBA Finals. So when you're taking these little snapshots and you keep talking about, oh, well, he can't be in the GOAT conversation because He was being compared to a guy who some people think shouldn't even be in the Hall of Fame. That's what you're really trying to say here. What I'm also wondering is, why do y'all keep talking about 02, 03, 04, but you fucking ignore from 06 onward? Because I distinctly remember from 2000, I don't give a fuck what none of these dudes saying. I don't give a fuck who it is. From 2006, especially until 2010, 2011, there was a legitimate comparison between Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan as far as GOAT conversation. I don't care who you are. I know what the fuck I saw on social media. I know what the fuck I was reading on social media. I know what some of these earlier YouTube content creators were talking about. And it wasn't LeBron James. It was who was better between Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, because Kobe Bryant was doing things that we had never seen before outside of Michael Jordan, and some things even Jordan hadn't accomplished yet, or at all, I should say. Now you might say, well, yeah, but the Lakers weren't winning. Well, Tracy McGrady wasn't winning shit either in Orlando. At the very least, Kobe was doing more with less than Tracy did. And that's another reason why Tracy was getting the pass, because Tracy was playing on some garbage teams in Orlando. So the thought process was, at the time, well, if you just put talent around Tracy, then we could see how legitimate this comparison is. But then when he went to Houston and he still couldn't get out of the first round, I don't want to hear about injuries. Okay, 1 or 2 years, that's the excuse. Every fucking year, you can't get out of the first round. And then when you're actually playing in these games, if you remember those games, Tracy was underperforming like shit. He was playing horrible. I remember some of them games, his field goal percentage was like on par with some players' batting averages in baseball. I remember these games. He was stinking it up. That's when the separation, that's when the comparison between McGrady and Kobe ceased to be a real thing. I'll tell you a comparison, a snapshot in time that these clowns don't want to hear. Let's talk about in 2011 when LeBron James had the worst performance ever for a so-called superstar in his prime in an NBA Finals, where he averaged a full 10 points fewer than he did during the regular season, where he had multiple games of single-digit performances. His performance was so bad in those NBA Finals. They were so putrid. He stunk it up so fucking bad that collectively around the NBA, when it came to talk, he relinquished that crown. There were people saying, you know what? We've been anointing this guy as perhaps the best player in the NBA, or one of the top two with Kobe. At this point, he's not Kobe Bryant. We're gonna have to. I legitimately saw people say that shit was so bad that I'm not sure LeBron James is a top 10 player in the league. I legitimately saw people say that. They were talking heads that said, at the very least, I'm not sure this is a top 5 player in the league anymore. I also remember LeBron James being so sensitive to the point afterwards. I think that from that point onward, LeBron James had a problem with ever being seen as he had a problem after that taking responsibility for poor performances or losses. I think that scarred him so much actually being held accountable for the first time in his basketball career. That he rigged it, essentially, so that he will never again take responsibility. He's a fragile narcissist. That's the last time I really saw anybody go at this guy for underperforming or not coming through for his team. Now, we never seen him play that badly again, but you tell me what has happened since then. You tell me. One guy, Kobe Bryant, is now being reduced. A guy that was legitimately in the GOAT conversation with Michael Jordan. Because remember, his story hadn't been fully told yet by 2010, 2011. Kobe was still only 32 years old, 33 years old at the time. So the people thought he could win more titles. So yes, the comparison with Michael Jordan was legitimate, right? And it wasn't really based on stats. It was based on the eye test, and it was based, yes, on championships, because that's what those two guys played for. Initially, LeBron James was trying to catch Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant on ring totals. That's what he was chasing. But when he failed to reach those championship tallies, then he tried to switch it to stats. And now, in his desperation, knowing that he's not going to reach those two when it comes to championships, now all of a sudden they're trying to make it about, oh, well, ring culture is ruining it. Now, because you failed, nigga? Now you want to do that? You self-serving asshole? You cocksucker? But yeah, since we're going to keep focusing on these little snapshots in time, let's talk about when LeBron James had the worst performance ever by a so-called superstar, to the point where there was a real conversation. This guy doesn't belong in the top tier of best players in the league. We gotta go through a whole season and do this one again, because we may have made a mistake with him. I distinctly remember that shit. Do you remember that? Fuck out of here.